This morning I got dressed, looked out the window, and could not believe my eyes. We had snow overnight, and I mean this shit is everywhere. I couldn't believe it. Yesterday was beautiful. Whatever. We've got work to do. Billy's Powerglide needs cleaned up. We need to get it taken up to Vickers and drop it off, so Dion can freshen it up and put that new 169 gear set in. So we loaded up in the truck, and Vicky sent me a message. She had something for us before we left. Cinnamon rolls. Bless her little heart. She never lets us leave the house hungry. We're leaving. I've got your head cut off in the video so nobody can see your face.
Yeah, you're just showing my messy floor then.
What's for dinner today?
A big dinner. Roast beef, mashed potatoes, gravy, corn, rolls, all that good stuff.
That gives me something to look forward to.
Yeah, so don't eat a big lunch.
All right.
Why don't you have maybe Subway or something?
Bye.
Bye.
I love you. So after we finished our cinnamon rolls, Bill and I jumped in his pickup and started our 2-hour drive up to Alliance, Ohio to see Dion Vickers at Vickers Performance Transmissions. Dion owns a small shop right behind his mom and dad's place. He's been working there in that shop for over 25 years building transmissions. Dion's just a good old boy like us, very humble, honest, takes care of his customers. His business has been booming. 2 years ago, when he started sponsoring Billy's S10, he wanted to try and move his business away from daily drivers and start working more towards race transmissions. Now, Dion's not just a transmission builder. He races himself. He's been a bracket racer for over 25 years, and he's done very well for himself. Dion's focus on consistency and a product that holds up to the test of time has served him very well in building heads-up transmissions, such as the ones in Billy's truck and many others here in Central Ohio. He's now shipping transmissions all over the country, in fact, all over the world. Philo, the shop cat, keeps him in check. What do you think, D? Can you fix it?
I don't know. I think one time he's going to come back and the dump valves are going to be dragging.
No, too many zip ties.
Did that change?
What's that?
The muffler on the one ton?
Yeah, I got it done.
Okay.
Billy needs one. Rev it up, Junior. Show him what it's like.
Now I can go to the car meets.
So after we left Dion's, Billy found this cool little 50s joint to get lunch at, not far from Dion's shop. Really neat little place. I loved all the antique signs and the gas station globes. So we sat down, got a bite to eat at Doug's Classic 57's Diner. So you heard anything out of Austin?
Last I heard he was like a couple hours away, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, really?
Going through Minneapolis.
Oh my God. What do you do, drive straight through?
I don't know. I think he might have stopped for a couple hours, maybe 3 or 4 hours. He's just trucking right along.
Did he take the sweetest shit wagon?
No, I think he traded off for the old F-350 box truck.
Oh, thank God.
I have a little bit more faith since it's a American-made truck instead of that Volvo.
Where's the Volvos made? Are they made in Sweden?
Yeah, Volvos are from Sweden. Pretty sure.
Sweden ain't worth a shit.
Why?
The only damn thing Sweden's ever produced worth a damn is the Swedish Chef on the Muppets. The shrimpies, the shrimpies. They're making a puppet corn.
They have some pretty sweet street racing video.
Of American-made cars.
There's a lot of Swedish cars.
They ain't fast.
That's That's very true. Usually American big block Chevys win it. American made. I mean, Sweden's fairly cool, I guess, just because of that, but...
They didn't fight in World War II.
Oh, really?
They sat on their ass. Wonder how many Swedish people watch my channel. Too many after this, huh?
No. So, Sweden isn't just good for nothing, Dad. They actually have some really good inventions that they've come up with
Like what?
that we use every day.
Like what?
The adjustable wrench, for one.
Really?
Sweden.
I thought monkeys invented that.
They called it the Swedish key. Johan Peter Johansson,
Johansson.
Swedish inventor.
Bork, bork, bork.
Digital doctors. I don't know what that means. Better shelter.
Coming up
The
dry.
Karma
son.
app. Oat milk. The pacemaker. That's a pretty good one. The pacemaker.
I don't need that damn thing.
You might. The 3-point seatbelt. The walking frame. The zipper.
A zipper?
Zipper's pretty important.
I get my wiener caught in that thing constantly.
Dude. Oh my god. You're gonna get canceled.
You know one thing I noticed?
What?
Is in your top 10 list of Swedish shit. Nowhere was there a Volvo mentioned. So once we got back to the shop from Dion's, we decided it was time to go ahead and take that Hughes converter apart and make the stator change. You ready to take this thing apart?
Yep, I'm ready.
Once all the bolts are removed from the outside of the converter, take a hammer, tap on the outside edges, holding onto the snout, and then use a screwdriver to pry the two pieces apart. Once the two halves of the converter are apart, we remove the stator and the sprag and begin disassembling the rest of the converter in order to clean everything out in the parts cleaning tank. Here, Billy dumps out the excess burnt fluid from the cover of the converter before putting it into the parts cleaning tank. Once we had all the parts cleaned up, we started reassembling the converter by using a little bit of red and tacky grease on some of the bearings and thrust washers. This is the one you want to run. The converter all cleaned out. We've got the turbine back in. The needle bearing is back in with the thrust washer. And we're ready to start putting the sprag and the diode in. Just like that. Should be right in there like that. Just like that. Once we had the converter all reassembled, it was time to put the two halves back together. The first thing we do is clean the receiver groove for the O-ring, and then I always apply just a little bit of red grease to the receiver groove in order to hold the O-ring while you slide the two halves of the converter back together and snug it down. If you don't use a little bit of grease, sometimes this O-ring can pop back up out of the groove as you tighten the converter back together, and you don't know it until you put the converter back in the car and you've got transmission fluid flying everywhere. Now we're starting to lay the O-ring down into the receiver groove. And sometimes if the O-ring's been laying around for a while folded up, it'll take a little bit of time for this O-ring to relax and lay down into the receiver groove. The grease will help hold it if it's being stubborn. This one happened to go right in, no problems. But I made sure to run my finger around the O-ring 3 or 4 times just to make sure it was relaxed and it didn't want to jump up out of there on its own. Now, it's time to put the 2 halves of the converter back together. So we've got the other half cleaned up, and the first thing we do is identify the dowel pin that has the 3 stamp marks next to it. That dowel pin and those 3 marks will line up with the corresponding dowel pin hole and 3 marks in the other half of the converter. When you put those 2 together, you're absolutely certain that the converter will go right back together exactly the way it came apart. Now, once you've got all the dowel pins lined up in the corresponding holes, the 2 halves of the converter will almost slide together by hand. Next thing you got to do, just start putting the bolts into the converter and snugging them back up. It's not necessarily very important to torque all these bolts down. We usually just hit them with a little electric impact. They're 3/8 bolts and they'll take a lot of torque, but they're really not that important to torque them down. As long as you've got them good and snug, you should be just fine. So we got Billy's converter all put back together tonight. It's ready to go. Dion's got the Powerglide up at Vickers. He should have it back together in a couple of days. Austin is on his way back right now. As I'm recording this video, he's on the road with the new engine from Minnesota. I can't say enough how appreciative our family is for all the love and support that we've received after Billy's engine blew up. The orders are off the hook for shirts and hoodies. And I asked Billy today, I said, can you check and see, are these the same people buying stuff again and again, or are these all new people? And of course, there's a lot of people that are buying again for the 2nd or 3rd time, or even sometimes even more than that. But 70% of the sales this week, 70% are first-time customers. The first time they've ever bought anything. So that's huge, because the orders they're crazy. We've never had this many orders in 3 days. It's insane. So it's a huge help, guys, and we certainly appreciate it. We can't thank you all enough. From the bottom of our hearts, thank you. The support's just incredible. I want to thank everybody for liking the videos that I put up, and Billy puts up, and Tommy puts up. I hope you'll subscribe to all the channels, even Molly's channel. Hopefully she'll have another video up soon. I guess I wanted to talk a little bit tonight before I go in about what we expect to have happen once this truck goes back together. I'll be honest, we may struggle the rest of this season. I don't know. Honestly, I think we had a very, very good, obviously we had a pretty good handle on the combination that we had. We were working on it, we were getting faster and faster, and it definitely wasn't at the end of it wasn't at its limit yet. I mean, we hadn't yet found what it was capable of. Unfortunately, we lost that engine, and now we're starting over. Now, the good thing is it will be the same bore and stroke that what we've previously had. I think this block standard bore, which is 4125, it's a 375 stroke. So that bore and stroke combination we are familiar with. However, this is an unknown camshaft, We don't yet know for sure what pistons are in it or what the compression ratio is. We won't know that until we get it back here, because Mike's never had the engine apart either. He bought it the way it is. It's only got dyno time on it. So when we get the engine back here, the first thing we're going to do is probably pull the oil pan off, check the main and the rod bearings. We're going to go ahead and pull the heads off because currently it has multi-layer steel head gaskets, and we don't want to use those. We want to use copper head gaskets. The block is not O-ringed, but we have had very, very, very good luck with the SCE Titan copper head gaskets, and that's what we want to have on this thing. So that's the plan. Tomorrow night when Austin gets back from Minnesota, probably after Bible study. Tomorrow's Thursday, so we'll have Bible study around 6 o'clock. But when Austin gets back, it'll probably be late tomorrow night by the time he gets back here. We'll go ahead and unload the engine, get a good night's rest, and tomorrow I think we'll work on Tommy's engine. But we just got so much going on. I hope that we can get a handle on this new engine and converter combination relatively quickly. It's a little bit nerve-wracking for me because we don't generally make very many changes at once, and in this case we're changing a lot at once. We're changing the stator. We went from a mechanical diode to a spragless stator setup. We're going from 13.5 to 1 compression to probably 11 or 12 to 1. It just depends on what the CC of the heads are and the pistons that are in this engine. We'll know that once we get the engine here. It's an unknown cam combination. We're going from 23 to 18 degree heads, a totally different intake manifold, and on top of that, that brand new 1050 carburetor's here. So we will probably fire it up on the 750 CSU and get it dialed in. And then from there, once we feel we're in pretty good shape, then we'll probably go ahead and put the 1050 on. On top of all that, we still have to upgrade the fuel system because we ran out of fuel pump. So there's so much going on and there's so many changes. It's nerve-wracking to me, to be honest with you. So that's about it for tonight, guys. It's dinner time. Time to call it a night. Love you all. Thank you very much for watching.